Now, what if this base over here were accepting two parameters? So let's say that we don't want to compute the volume of a cylinder, but we want to compute the volume of a cuboid. How do we do it? Now we know that the volume of a cuboid is going to be let's say it's also the area of base times the height times the height. Now the area of base here is not just going to accept a radius, which is going to be one parameter, but it's going to be, let's say, the width times the height, then, sorry, the width times the length, then before we have times height over here. So that means that if we have the area of base, then the base, we can't be accepting one. So how do we go about it? I encourage you to pause the video and then you go through it yourself. So assuming you've given a try at it, let's do this together. So in this case, we will be constructing two classes. The first class is going to be, let's say, a rectangle. And I forgot to mention first, classes should have capital letters starting it like this. So rectangle, not rectangle, as such. It's good practice. So rectangle in this order. Rectangle. Now the rectangle is going to accept, let's say, a width, and then we want to give it a double length as well. So those are the attributes that we'll be needing to get the area of this rectangle, right? Then we want to have this set to public, and we want to have a constructor called. So what I'm just doing is to replace some of the things, and it's going to accept a double width, and then after that a double height. Why do I like height? A double length. Then we want to say the width should be set to W, and then the height, the length should be set to, let's say, L. Right, so we have a constructor over there, member initialization. Then after that, we want to have double area, and we want to just return the width times the height. I'm misplacing the T and the H. We don't need a pi over here. Did I just say length, height? Sorry, so the width times the length. So we are done with our class for rectangle to compute its area. Now we want to come down here and say that the class of a cuboid. So a cuboid is just a rectangle which has been kind of pulled up to make it three-dimensional. Right, so I don't know if I can. So this is a rectangle. Let's have it this way. And so this is going to be the width, and this is going to be the length. Now when we have a cuboid in this way, now we can see that when we project this thing down over there, then it would have a rectangular base, right? So it would have a rectangular base where this is the width and this is the length. So we need to get the area of this, which is just the width times the length. And so after getting the area of this one, we need to multiply it by the height to get the volume, right? So that is it for the volume of a cuboid. And so we'll get back to this place. So we need the cuboid, and we need the height, and we need a rectangular base. So this is going to be rectangular base, and then we want to get in here and say that the cuboid would be accepting a height h, a double, let's say a double W, and then another double length. So then we want to set the height h, the width. Now this is the place. So let's say that this has a base object, and the base object is an object of the class rectangle. And in order to construct this particular object, the object needs two values during the point of construction. So then we would be passing w over here and the length over here, because that is what it's accepting. It's accepting width and the length. So width and the length, if we are accepting more than two parameters, we pass them there as well during the point of construction. Now I would want to encourage you guys that you should see it this way. So let's say that we are just constructing a rectangular object. So let's say rectangle rect. So let's say rectangle rect, and we want to create this object. Now that's, we are using this particular class here, and the class allows us to pass in two parameters during the point of construction of any object under the class rectangle. So we would be passing in, let's say 2 3 as the width and the length. Now over here, what we are just doing is that we have an object called rectangle base. So that's the object called rectangle base, right? And then this object, before it can be legally constructed, you need to pass in two parameters, because that's what the constructor accepts. So we need to pass in two parameters. So that's why we are passing in w and l over here. So we are passing in w and l, because, and this w and then this w and l will be passed during the point of construction of another object. We can't pass in fixed values here because we don't know. So that's why we need to pass in variables. So in this case, you are simply replacing these two values with variables. I don't know if that's making any sense to you, but you can develop your own way of understanding this maze, right? So we have base wl over here, and then we want to come and say double the volume of the cuboid. We are to return the base, this base dot, so the base dot area, because the base is an object of rectangle. So base dot area, that's base dot area times the height over here, which will be taken from there. So let's say that we don't have this working. So let's just clear out all of this and say that we have an object of cuboid, and it's going to be cuboid 1. Let's just say cuboid 1. And then what are we inputting? We are inputting a height, a double w and a double l. So the height is going to be, let's say 3, and double w is 5, and the length is 6, right? So basically I'm multiplying them. So 3 times 5 is 15. 15 times 6 is 90, right? So we have constructed our object called cuboid 1. We needed to pass in these parameters because we are using a constructor, and a constructor allows us to pass these attributes during the point of construction, right? So then let's say that we fail to pass in this and we run this. We should be getting an error, because so over here we have, okay, let me just be sure that this thing is working. So let me just put in the 6 and we run this again. Okay, so we have an error here. It says that only constructors take member initialization. Okay, so I think that we should have this n over there. So rectangle, rectangle, rectangle. Let's run this again. Right, and now we don't have any compile time error. So now what I wanted to say is, what if we fail to pass in the number of attributes needed to construct this object? What happens? So we get an error. It says that no matching function for call to that particular one. So we need to pass 6 over here to make it 3 parameters, right? Because that's what it's the only constructor, that's what it accepts. If we had another constructor that accepts 2 parameters, then even though we didn't want to call that one would be called, because that's the number of parameters it accepts. If it happens to accept double, I don't know if I'm making any sense. If not, forget about the last statement. So we'll just be seeing out cuboid 1. I think I should make this a small letter, even though it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we should have that over there. So we'll be having cuboid 1. Let's say dot volume, sorry. Right. Then we want to make this small letter as well. Right, so let's just run this and see what the output is going to be. It should be the only output, and it should be 90. Right, so we have 90 over there, so we could have written the volume of the cube is that. But what I want you guys to note is the order, the syntax, the way to do this thing over there. Right, so I hoped that this member initialization was well explained and you understand what it does. Right, so see in the next video where we'll be talking about pointers pointing to object classes, class objects. Right, so stay safe, see you in the next one.